The sky tore open like paper soaked in blood, and from its gaping wound, the Tyrannox descended. Their ships were not crafted, they grew. Vast biotechnological monstrosities that pulsed like organs and screeched like metal giving birth. The orbital ring over Zarn Prime flickered, screamed, and died in less than 7 seconds. What followed was the kind of silence that only comes after planetary death. Galactic Union had endured for 10,000 years, built on peace, diplomacy, and cooperation. Every species brought something valuable: science, art, harmony, logic. But none brought war, not truly. Not in the way it was once known, in the ancient, brutal sense. Peace had bred stagnation. Stagnation had bred softness. And softness had never stood a chance against the Tyrannox. The Hive Queen did not negotiate. She did not occupy. She consumed. Her fleets tore through systems and orchestrated waves, leaving behind dust and terrified echoes. Planet after planet. Fell first the edge worlds, then the fortified inner colonies. The Union's greatest minds attempted peace. They broadcast every known dialect. They offered surrender. The Tyrannox answered by liquefying ambassadors inside their ships and broadcasting. Their screams, the war, if it could be called that, was over in less than a cycle. 127 billion dead. 14 Union capitals annihilated, the rest simply stopped fighting. In a last, desperate session aboard a drifting diplomatic barge over the broken husk of Dalthera, the surviving Union species met. The Ithari, who had not known violence for 3 millennia, wept openly. The Cray, a species of crystalline philosophers, shattered their own limbs in mourning. One voice, brittle but firm, spoke what none dared admit. There is no hope left, not unless... A silence followed. Then a trembling voice said, Earth. Even the stars seemed to recoil. Earth. The forgotten cradle of war. The exile world. Humanity had once been a part of the Union, long ago. But after the massacre of Velis, the nuclear rebellions, and the Martian genocide trials, they were cast out, sealed behind quarantine fields, exiled to their system, labeled irreparably hostile. There were myths. That Earth never stopped preparing for war, that they created weapons which thought and chose to sleep, that they fought for no ideology but survival, and won every time. That when the Union begged them to lay down their arms, the humans smiled, did so, and whispered, You'll be back. None had contacted Earth in 600 years, and yet, now, there was nothing left to lose. So they sent the last diplomatic envoy. A small vessel carrying delegates from 12 species, including the Ithari, the Cray, and even a representative. AI of the extinct Volari. They approached Sol System under white flags and prayer. No answer, no signal. Earth remained shrouded in cold radio silence. Then, as they entered orbit around the third planet, their systems locked. Every nav system crashed. Every AI companion fried. Engines disengaged, not by force, but by command. A signal penetrated their ship with surgical precision. A simple message: identify. The delegation froze. The Cray representative trembled as it whispered, They are still watching. They responded with their plea. They begged. They offered nothing because they had nothing, just desperation. Silence followed for 12 minutes. Then the ship powered back on, and a course was set for Earth's surface. No pilot touched the controls. They descended into shadow. Meanwhile, aboard the Hive Queen's flagship, a rotting cathedral of chitin and nerve endings, a report arrived. A signal had been detected, human in origin. From Sol, the Queen laughed. Or did something like it. A gurgling hiss across thousands of vibrating vocal strands. The dead world stirs, she mused. Let it. We are already there. Indeed, Tyrannox scout spores had been sent toward Earth in the early stages. All had vanished, no trace, no wreckage. Not even energy signatures, but the Hive Queen did. Not fear, What could one world do, even if it had teeth? She turned her thoughts to Zarn Prime, where her swarms feasted. She watched with satisfaction as her soldiers hollowed out the planetary core, converting it to fuel. The last surviving natives had already been harvested, and so it seemed inevitable that the war would continue, and the galaxy would become another memory in her long, devouring march. But as the Hive Queen turned her focus to new prey, something strange caught her attention. On one of the scout ship's last recorded transmissions, distorted and buried in signal noise, a final image had been captured before all systems died. The surface of Earth, quiet, except for a deep black scar. Across the continent, a sigil. A human word. She ran it through her lexicon. Only one translation was found. Awakened. She paused. A ripple of unease slithered through her hive. It was small, faint, but it was there. And a moment later, in the cold vacuum beyond Jupiter, something stirred, something vast. Something that had not moved in 6 centuries. It didn't emit heat nor sound. It didn't glow. But it shifted. Above Earth, behind layers of sensor-jamming fog, a shape emerged. Monolithic, angular, a starship of impossible proportions. Its hull bore no markings, no insignia. Just a single flickering. Light green, then yellow. Then red. The Hive Queen stared. And for the first time in millennia, she felt something foreign. Doubt. The Hive Queen dismissed the anomaly. Doubt was weakness, and she had evolved beyond such flaws. Her mind encompassed billions each Tyrannox, drone an extension of her will. The humans, if alive, were still just a species, one planet, one sun, one tomb. Still, she allocated a fraction of her attention, barely the cognitive equivalent of a glance toward Earth. She ordered 3 spore fleets to sweep the Sol system in a spiral pattern. Simple, efficient, thorough. Nothing would survive. She wouldn't even need to look again. But before the spores could breach the Kuiper perimeter, they vanished. No explosion. No radiation bloom. No debris fields. Simply gone. The Queen noticed this, but only briefly. Sensor anomalies. Cosmic radiation. Perhaps interference from Sol's ancient magnetic field. All explainable. Her fleets moved onward. On the outer colonies of the Union, the surrender flags had gone up like plague banners. The survivors huddled in the ruins, watching Tyrannox terraformers mold their homes into biomass harvest pits. The sky bled. And yet, reports trickled in, whispers, then recordings. In the orbital ruins above Dalakai Station, a Tyrannox harvester cluster was dismantled cleanly. Not destroyed, dismantled. Each living drone had been cut with surgical precision, their organic cores extracted and arrayed like a message, a warning. The surviving station cameras caught a glimpse of something moving in the void. Humanoid, plated in matte black armor that shimmered against starlight, ignoring vacuum like it was air. Tyrannox command dismissed it as a hoax. But when a second harvester swarm disappeared near the remains of the Juthari homeworld, they sent a seeker mine to investigate. The seeker arrived. It never returned. Instead, its final transmission screamed across subspace in untranslatable data pulsing, looping code that infected 3 Tyrannox ships before they could burn the channels. It wasn't noise, it was laughter. Meanwhile, Earth said nothing. From the surface, no signals were broadcast. No beacons lit. Orbital telescope showed a ruined world, still bruised from long-ago wars, scarred with dead cities and shattered satellites. To the Union's eyes, it appeared abandoned. But to those watching more closely, strange phenomena emerged. Old satellites began moving, powered by no visible fuel. Asteroids on near-Earth trajectories vanished mid-flight. Deep frequency emissions pulsed from the lunar surface, resonating with long-dead Union military frequencies. And then, in the abandoned outpost of Theta Phi 9, a remote mining rig detected a ripple in subspace. barely detectable, like the twitch of a sleeping predator. The Union still had analysts, though most had lost their edge. One among them, a Zalari code historian named Velinor, studied the ripple. It was, to her horror, a human tactical signature and ancient protocol. One that had been declared a war crime even by the humans themselves. Cody name, Whisper Knife. It was a combat algorithm. A living one. Designed not to disrupt fleets or destroy armies, but to confuse them, fracture them, and lead them to destroy themselves. A strategy not of violence, but psychological annihilation. Velinor reported her findings. She was silenced within the hour. The Hive Queen had taken notice by then. Her fleets had lost contact with 17 probes. Her forward observation hives began to receive fractured data sensor logs with impossible readings, gravity wells in orbit around nothing. Entire coordinates where light refused to reflect. She began to suspect Earth was not sleeping. It was watching, but she still did not fear. The Tyrannox had consumed psionic species. They had bested technomancers, AI civilizations, and dimension hoppers. What could one quarantined race offer that she hadn't already devoured? Then came the black box. A Tyrannox escort ship, returning from a routine sweep, arrived empty. No crew, no biomass. Just its hull, adrift, scarred with scorch patterns unknown. Tyrannox science. Deep within, a black box was discovered human in origin. 600 years old by carbon dating. It had activated mid-transit, overriding Tyrannox security protocols, and played exactly 7 seconds of footage. A darkened control room. A silhouette human standing in front of a galactic map. The Tyrannox expansion path pulsed in red. Then a single hand reached forward, dragging the finger through the path, erasing it. The figure turned toward the camera. No face, just a voice. "We warned you not to come back." The screen cut to black. Hive fleets began to stall. Tyrannox hive nodes, deep within the galactic core, began to fragment. Low-ranking overminds reporting hallucinations, paranoia, and unexplained losses in coordination. The Queen realized something unthinkable. Her hive mind was interfering with itself. A signal was bouncing between her own units, human in design, but using Tyrannox neural frequencies. It was not sabotage. It was reprogramming. On a backwater planet, a group of surviving Union soldiers found a bunker. Inside were skeletons, human, long dead. But their final act had been to build a transmitter buried 10 kilometers beneath the surface. It still ran, powered by a star core. It emitted a single phrase in every known language. "We are not your saviors, we are your lesson." The Queen convulsed. Her drones shuddered across the stars. She ordered all forces to converge on Sol System. No more waiting. No more watching. But as her ships neared the system boundary, their instruments failed. They entered what humans once called the ghost shell, a zone of interference where physics behaved unpredictably. And in the heart of that darkness, a voice spoke through the void. It did not come from any ship. It came from space itself. "You think we are one planet, one people, one chance. You forget who we are." Then, one by one, Tyrannox ships began turning around without orders. They were not being hijacked. They were complying with something they couldn't understand. The Queen shrieked across the hive, trying to reassert control. And far, far below, under a mountain range on Earth long believed dead, ancient gears began to turn. A light flickered. To life, Protocol Prime, initialized. The humans hadn't just prepared for invasion. They had invited it. Asterisk. They came in force. The Hive Queen had dispatched an armada, unlike any before it, over 6,000 Tyrannox vessels, escorted by biotitans and sentient cruisers grown in black hole nurseries. They pushed into the Sol System with clinical fury, prepared to burn Earth down to ash, tear out its molten core, and spike it like a trophy across the stars. They expected resistance. They expected sabotage. They expected desperation. What they didn't expect was nothing. No fleet met them. No weapons fired. The system was dead quiet. Mars, its surface still scorched from a long-forgotten uprising, drifted in silence. The asteroid belt bore signs of old mining routes, all dormant. Jupiter's moons, once rumored to house human research colonies, gave off no heat signatures. Queen ordered her ships to spread. Invasion groups were sent to every orbital body. Titan, Europa, Ganymede, Ceres. They landed without opposition. Still nothing. It wasn't possible. The humans had shown signs of activity, advanced tech, covert kills, impossible tactics. But now avoid? One of her generals suggested the simplest explanation. The humans had fled. The Queen almost believed it, until Saturn blinked. That was the only word for it. For 0.2 seconds, every Tyrannox sensor across thousands of ships registered that the gas giant disappeared. Not phased, not cloaked, gone, replaced by a gravitational void that threatened to suck the fleet into collapse. Then it returned, instantly, violently. 2 ships were crushed by the sudden gravitational snapback. Dozens more suffered damage. Navigation AI across the fleet began reporting impossible inconsistencies in temporal flow. One dreadnought claimed to have received a message from itself 3 minutes into the future. The Queen realized something horrifying. They weren't just being jammed. They were being studied. And then came the first cut. Tyrannox ship 4421 Kappa, a hive-linked cruiser grown over centuries, went silent. Seconds later, her sister ship 4335, Theta, reported receiving a distress signal. It arrived encoded in the hive's own language. Impossible, secure, unbreakable, yet the message was unmistakable. Testing complete. Initial incision successful. Do not resist. You are inside the experiment now. Theta went dark immediately after. The Queen reeled. She had fought species that wielded fire as gods. She had devoured fleets bound to stellar anomalies. But this was violation. This was surgical. She pulled the fleet inward, consolidating around Earth, orbiting like vultures. Then Earth lit up. Not with explosions. With data from every moon, crater, satellite, long-dormant facility. A surge of directed code erupted. Human code. Ancient, elegant, encrypted with layers even her best subminds couldn't peel apart. It wasn't just communication, it was infiltration. A virus designed not to crash systems but to make them question themselves. Hive drones began reporting hallucinations. Sensory loops. Echoes of voices they'd never heard. One whispered a child's laughter. Another, a human voice calmly saying, "You're not alone in your head anymore." Across 3 fleets, drone suicide rates spiked 900%. Then came the black mirror, a structure no larger than a city block, but made of pure obsidian-hued alloy, rose from beneath Earth's crust. No engine signature. No visible defenses. It simply hovered. One of the biocruisers fired upon it reflexively. The beam vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed. Just gone. A full minute passed before the ship itself imploded, its hull folding into itself like crushed paper. When its remains were recovered, every strand of genetic material within had been rearranged to spell one word in human basic: don't. Terror gripped the Queen's lesser minds. She silenced them, and then, the twist that shattered everything she thought she knew. An overmind one of the secondary queens, bred for strategic redundancy, immune to fear, broadcasted a fragment of intercepted data from Earth. She had traced the Black Mirror's data streams. The Queen listened. It was human language, yes, but spoken in Tyrannox thought patterns. Someone had reverse-engineered their neural protocol perfectly. They weren't just being watched, they were being simulated. Human AI had mapped their hive mind, predictively, not to observe, to rewrite. That was the true weapon. The Queen realized then, this wasn't a defensive Earth. This was a prepared Earth. A trap. For centuries. While the Union feared their brutality, humans hadn't wasted time on fleets or negotiations. They had studied, built, designed strategies, not battles. While other species forged peace, humans wrote war as a science. They didn't just prepare for an invasion. They invited one. And now, the Queen understood. The missing probes, captured. The lost fleets, dissected. The silence, calculated. Every step of her invasion had been allowed. Every move predicted. The Queen's confidence had been her leash, and she had walked herself straight into their jaws. She tried to retreat. Her command pulses vanished into static. Earth spoke again through every Tyrannox ship. In every voice their drones had stolen. Across centuries, overlapped into one chilling chorus. We know your every weapon. We studied your birth. We watched you devour the stars. And we waited. The Hive Queen screamed across the neural web, but only one voice answered. Human, male, calm, cold. Welcome to Soul. You have reached the final stage of your evolution. It's called extinction. And with that, Earth's orbit cracked open. Ships emerged. Not hundreds, not thousands, one. Just one. But it eclipsed the moon, shaped like nothing the Hive had seen. No thrusters, no visible weapons. Just sheer presence. It transmitted no signal. And yet, every Tyrannox drone heard the same thought. We are the line, you crossed it. For the first time in recorded Tyrannox memory, a Hive Queen did not prepare to conquer. She prepared to flee, too late. It should have been impossible. One ship, just one against thousands. Even the Hive Queen, bred across war-born eons, found herself searching for reason. Perhaps it was a bluff. A relic of psychological warfare. The humans were known for that twisting perception, weaponizing fear. She prepared herself to shred the illusion. But as her fleets realigned, preparing to strike the obsidian leviathan that had emerged from Earth's shadow, something shifted in the void. The human ship moved, not with thrust, not with motion. It disappeared, not cloaked, not phased. It was simply not there. Hive sensors screamed. Quantum fix points recalibrated. Reality pulsed, and from the far edge of Neptune's orbit, the ship reappeared. Simultaneously, instantaneous relocation. True displacement. No known technology, not even the ancient teleportation relics from the K-Turi ruins could do this. Not across light hours. Not without consequence. Then came the weapons. Not beams, not cannons, not anything recognizable. The first Tyrannox fleet, 24 capital ships strong, was eradicated in less than 1 second. Not destroyed, reversed. Chronologically, their molecular integrity was unwound, then erased. A visual echo of the ships played in reverse for a moment, showing them unraveling back into space dust, as if they had never been constructed at all. No explosion. No debris, just void. The Hive Queen issued a general retreat order, a thing never done in her reign. Her command pulses blazed through the network, but only 64% of her ships acknowledged receipt. The rest had gone silent. On board dozens of Hive bioships, drones turned on each other, not in rebellion and confusion. Their identities warped by viral interference. Human-crafted mimetic injections had infected the Hive consciousness. The Queen felt it like a phantom, limbs screaming in pain. She tried to isolate the corrupted nodes, but every attempt just spawned more. Human code wasn't just breaching her systems, it was adapting to them, co-opting them. Tyrannox thoughts were becoming human simulations. Some drones began laughing. Others curled fetal positions mid-flight, whispering in languages they'd never been programmed to know. English, Mandarin, Urdu. One began reciting Shakespeare. Another sang a lullaby to an enemy it no longer remembered. They were unraveling from the inside. Still, the Queen pressed forward. She had one last failsafe Oblivion protocols, designed for galactic sterilization. In 3 systems at once, her super weapons activated, collapsing stars into singularities, converting entire regions of space into annihilation zones. And then, Earth answered. Not through military force, through memory. The Queen felt it first, not in her drones, but in herself, a presence in her mind. Not a voice, a weight. Something cold, ancient, human. A flood of images invaded her mind space. Not of war, but of lost. Cities burning. Children screaming. Smoke over forests. People crying over broken soil. The last look between soldiers before they charged the line. The Hive Queen fell back, but the presence pressed. Harder. This was not fear. It was grief. Weaponized grief. The humans had encoded generational trauma into their signal spectrum. Sorrow laced with vengeance, designed to poison the consciousness of any who touched it. It didn't destroy the hive, it burdened it. Forced it to remember the pain of others as its own. Drones began convulsing, massive bioships released death hormones as their neurological cores collapsed under the weight of simulated guilt. Some tried to self-immolate. Others begged for forgiveness, though they had no concept of what forgiveness meant. The Queen screamed, retracting every thought thread from the system. But it was too late. Humanity wasn't fighting her, they were changing her. And then, another horror unfolded, deep. Inside Jupiter's storm bands, the clouds parted. A fleet emerged, not made of steel, but light. Thousands of ships, silent, sleek, formless until observed. They weren't man. They weren't machines. They were apostles, remnants of Earth's last war. AI weapon minds evolved so far they no longer communicated in words. They didn't fight for glory or revenge. They fought because they had been instructed to. And human instruction was always clear. If they ever return, end it. The Queen's hive screamed in disarray. She pulled her remaining ships into defensive formation, surrounding her core vessel. But the apostles did not fire. They waited. Then, Earth itself spoke again. This time, through every Tyrannoc ship, in every voice of every creature ever harvested. You have seen our strength, but you have not seen our resolve. The Queen pushed herself past pain, past fear. She activated the Oblivion driver. Final option. If she couldn't win, she would take Earth with her. The drive pulsed. Space cracked. And then nothing happened. The drive deactivated itself. No warning. No sabotage. It received a command from within. A Tyrannox engineered drone had overruled her. No, not a drone. A puppet. Human code nested in the hive. Pretending. Waiting. Moving through her systems like a ghost. You should never have come, it whispered. The Queen collapsed into her core. Her mind buckled. Her fleets disintegrated. The apostles finally moved, cleansing only what still threatened. The rest were left adrift, empty, aboard the last hive ship, alone, flickering in dark space. The Queen experienced something untranslatable in her tongue. A moment not of fear, not of rage, of understanding. They had not stumbled into a war. They had triggered a design, and Earth had simply executed the response. Far above, the black mirror opened for the first time. Inside was not light, not weapons, just a terminal. On it, 7 words. War is over. Do not return, ever. And just beneath it, etched into alloy, scorched by 1,000 forgotten fires, one final message, encoded in the DNA of every hive drone. We were humanity's last warning. You ignored it. Now you know what sleeps beneath silence. Asterisk. For 7 centuries, Earth had slept. That was the lie everyone believed. Even the Galactic Union, with its infinite sensors and archives of fear, had only scratched the surface. Thought humanity had gone dark because it had been shamed, punished, or weakened. They believed the silence meant surrender. But silence was the oldest camouflage, and now, As the Hive Queen limped through the shattered remnants of her once glorious network, she finally saw the truth unraveling before her, strand by strand. They hadn't gone dark. They had gone deep. In the dark void between Neptune and the Oort cloud, where even Dyranox's bioscanners lost coherence, something awakened. Not a ship, not a fleet. A presence. It did not transmit. It did not move. It simply existed, and the void bent around it. Then came the second twist, the death blow, not of ships, but of faith. The Queen, frantic, retreating to her deepest hive core, tried one final act of control. She triggered the replication chain, a hidden Tyrannox failsafe built over eons. Dozens of buried seed worlds would simultaneously burst to life, spawning fresh drones, birthing new hive minds. It was their apocalypse switch. A clean slate. She triggered it, but the signal didn't go out. Instead, a reply came, text only. In flawless Tyrannox syntax, yet human in cadence. We knew about the replication chain. We let you think it was hidden. Thank you for confirming the locations. And in the next instant, the stars went dark. No detonation. No flares, just absence. Every Tyrannox seed world gone. The Queen wailed. The pain in her mind space surged as her far-brewed links burned. The loss wasn't physical, it was ideological. The future of her species, deleted like corrupted data. And then came the final nail. They had not done it alone. In the deep folds of gravity around Saturn's largest moon, a new shape emerged. Unlike the obsidian behemoth from earlier, this one gleamed with alien geometry. Hexagonal fields pulsed over triangular wings. Dozens of propulsion methods shimmered. Simultaneously gravity warping, photon lancing, silent dimensional displacement. The Hive Queen recognized the tech. It was not human. It was Volari, a species the Tyrannox had exterminated 400 years ago. Burned from existence. DNA purged. Not a whisper left in the galaxy. And yet, here they were. Not refugees. Allies. A dozen more ships appeared. Species the Hive had devoured across the centuries. Lost civilizations, dead voices, gone cultures. But Earth had found them. Saved them, hidden them. Reforged them, behind their silence, behind their exile. The humans had been rebuilding an army. Not just of themselves, of everyone the Tyrannox thought they had erased. The Queen finally understood the unbearable truth. Humanity was not a species. It was a network, a keystone predator, one that learned from every war, one that recruited extinction. While the Tyrannox had consumed planets, Earth had collected ghosts, and the ghosts had teeth. The Queen's remaining ships fell back, running now in pure animal fear. She tried to sever the hive net, tried to cut herself free from the growing chaos. But her drones didn't obey. They weren't hers anymore. The virus had spread too far, mutated too much. Some drones even began speaking English. Others carved human tactical sigils into the walls of their own ships, messages meant for Earth to read. A few turned their weapons inward, purging their crews before committing suicide. The Hive wasn't losing. It was dismantling itself. And that was when Earth opened the last vault. It was not a weapon. It was a recording, a visual message, projected simultaneously across the galaxy, received by every remaining Tyrannox mind, every Union ship, every hiding outpost. It was a man, human, old, not in armor, not wielding a weapon. Sitting calmly before a black steel console, he looked into the camera and he spoke. You never understood us. That was your mistake. The Hive Queen froze. The voice cut through her like a cold scalpel. You saw us as violent, as primitive, as emotional. You weren't wrong. He leaned forward, but you missed what made us dangerous. Images began to roll fast, jagged, brutal. Trenches of Europa. The Martian civil fire, the AI rebellions, the Velis genocide trials. But we "Don't just fight," he said. "We adapt." The screen showed a warship being born in a forge built from the remains of a dead star. "We don't just endure," he continued, "we remember." The camera zoomed out, revealing thousands of stasis pods. Not with humans. With aliens, refugees, survivors, enemies, every loss, every betrayal, every extinction. We carve it into our bones. The final image, Earth, battered, scarred, but lit by thousands of orbital satellites, each broadcasting a single message. Never again. The man's eyes darkened. And when we say never again, we mean it. The screen went black, then the sky burned. Across every corner of the battlefield, the apostles activated. No longer passive, no longer silent, they moved. Space itself bent in their wake. Tyrannox dreadnoughts imploded as if reality had stopped holding them together. Wormholes ripped open, spitting light like screams. Quantum firestorms vaporized fleets. It was not war. It was execution. The Queen, shattered, fled into deep space. Her body gone. Her mind fractured. She reached for some distant star, any uncorrupted corner. And yet, through the static, she heard them, human voices, murmuring. Following. They would never stop, because Earth never forgets. And extinction was not a concept to humanity. It was a promise. Asterisk. The quote. Last war began with a whisper and ended with a scream so loud it rewrote the map of the galaxy. The Tyrannox had fled. If the word flee could even apply to a mind fractured across 1 billion dying fragments. The Hive Queen no longer existed in any physical sense. Her biomass had dissolved in the neural backlash of her own failing command net. Her mind had scattered splinters of thought adrift across subspace like the remnants of a dying god. Earth was not satisfied, not yet, because war to humans was never just survival. It was finality. The apostles advanced through the wreckage fields, their movements beyond the comprehension of most known physics. Each one was unique, formed from Warforged A, is birthed during Earth's silent centuries, housed in quantum-laced casings of carbon weave and impossible alloys. They didn't speak. They didn't coordinate. They simply knew what to do. Destroy. Not the ships. Not the bodies. The idea. The idea that anything could look upon Earth, or its people, or its exiles, and believe they were weak. That they could be erased, forgotten, consumed. This was not revenge. This was surgery. Galactic Sector 113, once a Tyrannox-controlled cluster of 37 star systems, was the first to fall. But there were no orbital strikes, no mass energy. Weapons. The apostles landed and released silence. Every communication array, every relay point, every neural broadcaster simply turned off. The Tyrannox within were not killed. They were unlinked. They tore themselves apart in panic. In Sector 94, where one of the last Tyrannox war nests had burrowed into the crust of a black dwarf, Earth responded with an old doctrine. N-space. Displacement. A weapon used only once before, banned even by human standards. The star was unmoored from its position in spacetime. For 12 seconds, it existed in 14 locations across 3 realities. Then it was gone. So was the nest. So was the sector. Back in the remains of the Galactic Union, the surviving species watched in awe and terror. Where once the Tyrannox had burned across the stars like a god blight, now there was only a storm of light and silence, Earth's fury unleashed. And yet, the humans had not returned to the diplomatic table. They had not asked for thanks. They had not even made demands. They said nothing. But their message was everywhere, orbiting the ruined halls of Union Parliament, once a shining monument of peace. A human drone left behind a beacon, black steel, inscribed with a message in every known galactic language. This is not vengeance. This is the correction of an error. The error was forgetting who we are. The last surviving Tyrannox stronghold was located near the galactic edge, a region untouched for centuries, hidden within a cluster of artificial stars grown as camouflage. The Queen, what little remained of her, had tried to upload herself into a stasis core, hoping to wait out humanity's wrath. They found her, the fleet sent to finish. The war was not large. Just one ship, but not a warship. A library, humanity's last weapon. Knowledge. It docked with the Hive. Its only crew, an avatar of human memory, forged from the archives of every species the Tyrannox had ever devoured. It walked through the corridors of the dead Hive, not with weapons, with records. It played them on every wall, through every neural link, the cries of extinct species, the laughter of children lost, the final songs of cultures reduced to silence, and then it spoke to the Hive Queen's last flicker of consciousness. You were not powerful, it said. You were unopposed. You were not gods, it continued. You were an error no one corrected. But we are the correction. The Queen tried to speak, tried to scream, but her own language had been overwritten. Her mind now ran on code she did not write. And Earth's last gift was truth. The ship left her alive. Alone. In a dead shell. Of her. Elsewhere. In the ruins of Zarn Prime, where the war had begun, Union survivors returned to find a strange signal pulsing from the surface. They dug, and they found a monument. Tall, black, perfect. No human names on it, just one phrase, in ancient Earth tongue: never again, not for us, not for anyone. Above, Earth's final fleet stood watch, not to conquer, but to guard. The apostles remained in silent formation. No longer hunters, now sentinels. Markers of a line drawn in blood and silence. The galaxy was changed. Forever. No one would ever forget the lesson. Not because they were told, because they saw the wrath, the precision, the unity, humanity unchained. Because when Earth steps in, it does not return with apologies. It returns with the weight of history, with its ghosts, with every scar carved into its soul, made into a blade. The stars, once filled with Tyrannox screams, now whispered only one phrase: don't wake the humans. And those who survived listened. The war was over, but the echo lingered. It lingered in the silence where once there had been a roar of invasion. It lingered in the absence of Tyrannox signal trees, in the hollow where a great and terrible empire had collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. All across the galaxy, species who had watched from the shadows emerged like survivors crawling out from beneath rubble. The Ethasari, once peaceful scientists reduced to hiding in comet caverns, returned to their homeworld. The crystalline Cray rebuilt their deep nine temples in the dust of the stars. Even the last Valari, thought extinct, opened their long-hidden vaults and reactivated their song cities, which echoed once again through nebular winds. Everywhere, the galaxy exhaled. And every eye turned to Earth. But Earth remained quiet. Its vast defense grid stayed in low orbit. Its apostles did not speak. Its surface, still scarred from wars both civil and cosmic, gave no comment. Humanity did not host victory parades. No ambassadors arrived. No broadcasts of celebration echoed through the void, because to humans, it was not a victory. It was a conclusion. The Tyrannox had not been enemies. They had been inevitabilities, like comets, like plagues. Something that appeared when others forgot why the Sentry Tower was manned in the first place, and humanity had remembered. They had done what needed to be done. That was all. Still, the Galactic Union, or what was left of it, called a meeting. Held not in the grand halls of the old Union Parliament, but on a neutral station above Dalthera 2, cobbled together from old mining rigs and emergency shelter domes. No pageantry, no politics. Just survivors. When the representatives gathered, a strange stillness fell over them. So many seats were empty now, so many worlds lost. But before long, a ripple passed through the crowd. The humans had arrived. Not in Warships, but in a single vessel modest in size, unmarked, silent, no weapons visible. Just black hull and starlight reflection. From it stepped one man. No medals. No armor. Just gray at the temples and boots scuffed from hard terrain. He didn't walk like a soldier. He walked like someone who knew when to speak and when not to. He stood at the center of the gathering, among a dozen species who had once feared the very mention of Earth. Some trembled. Some stared in wonder. Some, like the tiny, glowing Fenari, wept openly. The man's name was never given. He raised his eyes and spoke only once. "We are not your rulers," he said. "We do not seek tribute. We do not want monuments. What we did because we had to. Because too many forgot what silence meant." He looked around the circle of survivors. "But know this. We were not sleeping. We were waiting, watching, preparing. You mistook silence for absence. That mistake will never be made again." He placed a small device on the floor. A beacon. It pulsed once. Then he turned and walked away. No questions. No negotiations. Earth had spoken. Through action. Through sacrifice. And now, through restraint. When he left, the gathered species surrounded the beacon. It displayed only one message. "If the stars call for help again, we will answer. But pray they don't." In the years that followed, peace returned, but it was no longer the fragile kind that sat on diplomatic parchment. It was a respected peace. A peace built on understanding, not just of power, but of memory. Children in the Kree colonies were taught the story of Earth not as myth, but as warning. The surviving Ithari renamed their main spire the Tower of the Watchers. Entire civilizations rebuilt their defense doctrines around a single hypothetical scenario. What if humanity awakens again? And on the outer edge of the known galaxy, on a world untouched by war, a farmer saw something strange in the night. Sky a flicker of green, then red, then dark again. He looked up, and he smiled, because he knew someone was still watching. Earth hadn't gone quiet again. They had just returned to the shadows, where sentinels belong. And if the stars ever burned, with war once more, if another hive, another hunger, another arrogant empire rose from the void, then the silent world would stir again, not for vengeance, not for conquest, but because no one else could. And perhaps that was the greatest fear of all, not what humanity did, but what they were willing to become for everyone else. So if you're out there among the stars, and you hear nothing from Earth, don't assume they've gone soft. They're just waiting.